A utility manages the most extensive network in history. Your infrastructure connects the highest-paying 1% to the most vulnerable households, reconciling supply and demand. Yet, while the physical wires are connected, the economic framework managing them is fractured. Your current systems track energy and payments, but they are blind to the social and ecological exhaustion that destabilizes the entire grid. This imbalance is visible in the value stack. At the top sits the $120 trillion information ledger, tracking GDP and megawatts. Beneath lies a $348 trillion foundation, the Sovereignty ledger, representing the hidden debt of workforce burnout and watershed depletion your utility subsidizes. When you attempt to manage industrial-scale infrastructure using only the data in that top ledger, the system becomes top-heavy. It is a mathematical instability where the recorded growth at the tip is being hollowed out by the unrecorded debt at the base. Because utilities only see the productivity fragments, forecasting becomes an exercise in guesswork. You build for a level of consumption that the underlying social ledger can no longer support, creating what is known as phantom demand. This results in massive infrastructural overbuilding. When the forecasted demand doesn't materialize because the ratepayer base is exhausted, you are left with stranded capital and billions in deferred maintenance. The physical manifestation of this systemic blindness is JADO, the highest amplified deprivation concentration. JADO is a localized metric. It calculates the exact sum of workforce time poverty, household energy burden, and ecological flow deficits within your territory. These are the specific points where your circuit is bleeding the most value. Healing these localized wounds doesn't require a technological overhaul. It requires using your existing billing and distribution reach to finally reconcile those two disconnected ledgers. You already manage the ratepayer ledgers and the grid connections. These are the administrative tools needed to bridge the gap between the visible economy and the hidden debt. The Sovereignty VPN acts as the strategic bridge. It allows the information ledger and the sovereignty ledger to meet, using your existing data custody to verify the needs of the 99% against the productivity of the 1%. This interaction is governed by the Lock 7 protocol. Your data remains inside your own systems. It is queried locally to verify the circuit balance, but it is never collected or surveilled by external entities. By providing this secure calibration point, the utility becomes the hub where these two distinct datasets finally align. You are the only entity that can securely host the meeting of these ledgers without surrendering control to a third party. When you calibrate supply to this holistic demand, the uncertainty that drives phantom demand disappears. You are no longer building for a guess, you are building for a balanced system. This alignment reveals a massive flow of value. As the central reconciler for the household and ecological ledgers, the utility handles the pass-through for 92 to 95% of the value moving through this newly closed circuit. You utilize your existing billing capability to distribute fiat currency to individuals, recognizing their contribution to the information ledger. Simultaneously, the system distributes watts to reward those who address the JADO wounds, the people caring for the households and the watershed. These watts are the weights used to direct resources where they are needed to stabilize the foundation. For organizing this flow and holding the lens, the utility receives a permanent recurring entity dividend. By establishing this flow, the deferred maintenance on your books, once an unfunded liability, is recomposed into a funded asset, paid for by the increased efficiency of the closed circuit. As the circuit stabilizes, the utility routes incoming reciprocal watts to dispose of localized JADO. This actively heals the wounds in your service territory by injecting value directly where the deprivation is highest. At this level of coherence, the system transitions into an ecocentric grid. This grid moves away from the traditional model of resource extraction. Instead, it operates on a baseline of continuous ecological abundance, where the gains from the restored watershed and stabilized workforce fund the grid's operation. A critical part of this abundance is the unborn floor protocol. 5% of the systemic value is automatically locked in perpetuity to fund future generations, ensuring the grid remains viable for those who haven't been born yet. Through this mathematical reconciliation, the utility evolves into the permanent substrate of a self-sustaining grid, where productivity and planetary purpose are finally accounted for on the same ledger. Look at your balance sheet. Within your service territory sits $242 trillion in dry capital, trapped leverage that cannot move because the ledgers aren't meeting. To unlock this value, you don't need to build a new network. You only need to grant permission for your existing ratepayer data to become warm, allowing it to query the Sovereignty ledger and engage the system. You already manage the ledgers and the distribution. Stop trying to solve fragmented problems and use your existing operational control to complete the whole.